Ned Stark stood alone in the damp silence of the crypts beneath Winterfell. The chill of centuries-old stone clung to his cloak, yet a more profound cold seeped from within, a dread that crept into bone and marrow as his lantern's flame revealed the carved faces of long-dead kings. At the farthest niche, Lyanna's effigy waited. Serene, stubborn, and forever 17, the lantern light flickered across her stone cheeks, and in that shimmer he could almost hear her laughter echoing through the godswood. See her racing on a smoky gray mare with hair streaming like dusk behind her. Yet tonight no memory could soften the weight of the parchment Ned held. The old, cracked wax bore Maester Luwin's sigil. Its words were Maester Eddard's own, penned during Robert's first fever after the Trident, when delirium loosened the king's tongue and Ned had feared his friend might die. Sworn never to reveal it, Ned had hidden the page in the Winterfell archives, hoping ignorance might shield Jon from a realm that devoured bastards and bastions alike. But dawn after dawn the realm bent closer to disaster. The king's restlessness, Cersei's watchful eyes, Littlefinger's whispers. Now Robert's summons to ride south once more. This time his hand loomed over winter like a blunted sword. He knelt before Lyanna's effigy. "Forgive me," he whispered, fingertips brushing cold stone. "I kept his birthright locked away. I thought it mercy." A phantom wind seemed to stir the crypts, though no door had opened. In the lantern's tremor, Ned saw shadows merge into the shape of a young woman kneeling opposite him, hand outstretched in silent plea. His breath caught, a father's stern caution warred with a brother's longing, until grief finally yielded to resolve. Ned unfolded the parchment. In Maester Eddard's even hand, beneath the ancient sigil of the Tower of Joy, lay the words, "To the Lord of Winterfell, the boy you cradle is no bastard. He is Aegon Targaryen, trueborn son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, heir to the Iron Throne." Ned shut his eyes, seeing again the newborn. Black hair, violet glimmer at the edge of iris that would fade to smoky gray. Seeing Lyanna, fevered and dying, beg him to keep her son safe. His sworn brothers had perished at the tower's base, and after their blood dried only promises remained. Protect the boy, spare him the crown's weight, shield him from Robert's wrath. But Robert Baratheon had drunk his vengeance like sour wine, growing only thirstier. Slights real and imagined festered in Red Keep shadows. If the king learned the truth now, Jon would not merely die. The realm might cascade into war. So Ned had buried Lyanna's secret beneath layers of falsehood. Jon Snow, bastard of Winterfell. A lie repeated so often it had become the boy's armor and his cage. Bootsteps echoed behind him. Ned rose, heart hammering, as Maester Luwin approached with measured haste. "My lord," the Maester murmured, voice laced with awe rather than apology. Ser Rodrik sent word. "The lords have gathered in the hall. They await your answer to the king's summons." Ned tucked the parchment within his doublet. "Have them wait a little longer." His gaze returned to Lyanna's stone likeness. "There is one more crown to forge before I wear Robert's." Snow dusted the courtyard like sifted flour when Ned emerged into sobering daylight. The sky was a pale northern slate, clouds lurking at the edges as if afraid of what was brewing below. Jon Snow practiced sword forms with Robb near the kennels, sweat steaming from both young men despite the cold. Jon's footwork bore Ser Rodrik's discipline. A lunge, a pivot, a quick parry that set Robb retreating. At 17, Jon's grace had the fluid certainty of water flowing beneath ice. Quiet, relentless. Ned paused, longing to wrap an arm around each boy and freeze them in this moment before duty-shattered childhood. But he beckoned Jon instead. Robb, panting, saluted and returned to drilling alone. Jon approached, pushing damp curls from his brow. "You sent for me, father?" A lifetime of practiced answers hovered on Ned's tongue. "Because you are my son, though no Stark will claim you." Yet he found himself asking, "Do you trust me, Jon?"
Surprise flickered.
"With all I am." "Then come." Ned's voice broke like brittle bark. "We must speak where walls cannot listen." They crossed the bailey, climbed the winding tower stair to Ned's solar, oak-paneled, fire-lit, littered with maps and raven scrolls. Ned dismissed Luwin and Ser Roderick, bolted the door, and stared at Jon until the boy shifted under his scrutiny. Outside, dire wolf pups howled, as though sensing the blood-deep tremor about to shake their pack. Ned withdrew the parchment. What I tell you must never leave trusted ears. Lives hang upon it. He handed the crinkled paper to Jon. Jon's brow furrowed as he read. Words bleached his face bone-white. This cannot be. My mother was my sister, Ned said softly. Her name is Lyanna, and she gave you life at the Tower of Joy. I swore to her I would keep you safe. Jon staggered, as if each confession were a sword blow.
I'm
Targaryen? In blood, yes, but you were raised a Stark, and that is no small thing. Confusion churned behind Jon's eyes. Anger, disbelief, the stinging memory of every slight he'd borne as a bastard. Why now? Because winter is coming faster than men think. Ned paced before the hearth. The king bids me ride south as hand. I'll barter with snakes and vipers in King's Landing, and I cannot in good conscience leave you unshielded. Jon laughed, hollow and brittle. Shielded? You would proclaim me the very thing Robert hunts. I would crown you here in Winterfell before northern hearts who still remember the dragon's rule more kindly than southern steel. The north is vast, stubborn, and slow to kneel. Under my banner alone it stands firm. Beneath its rightful king it will stand unbreakable. Fire crackled. Jon's hand closed around the parchment so tight it crumpled. I never asked for crowns. Crowns often find those who least desire them. Ned clasped his son, no, his nephew, by the shoulders. Listen well. We shall gather the bannermen tonight. I'll reveal the truth and name you Stark in heart and Targaryen by right. Then, in the Godswood, with old gods and new as witness, the North shall acclaim you as their king. Jon's breath shuddered. And the South? I will ride south bearing my king's decree, that the North has its own crowned ruler, chosen by blood older than the conquerors. Robert may rage, yet he will think twice before turning swords north while Lannister debts grow heavy and Essos courts his enemies. Jon searched his face, as though studying some uncharted map drawn in Ned's scars. And if he marches anyway, then we will face him with truth in our hearts and winter at our backs. A kingdom can survive the loss of a friend. It cannot survive the rot of a lie. That dusk, ravens flapped toward distant keeps. Carhold, Bear Island, the Dreadfort, carrying summons bearing the dire wolf of Stark entwined with a silver three-headed dragon. Within hours, Winterfell's great hall filled with banners. Glover's silver fist, Mormont's black bear, Umber's roaring giant. The hearth, fires burned bright, but tension clung thicker than mutton grease as lords muttered under their breaths. Lady Catelyn stood beside Ned at the dais, face pale yet resolute. She had read the parchment and wrestled turmoil into cautious support. Robb stood like a young oak, firm but trembling. Arya watched wide-eyed from a balcony. Sansa clasped hands in prayer. Bran perched upon Hodder's shoulders near the back, while Rickon, bewildered, clung to old Nan's skirts. Jon wore black wool, the Stark colors he'd always favored, but a new steel circlet rested against his palm. A simple band of dark, hammered metal shaped from a shard of ice, the great sword once wielded by Bran the Builder. Its weight seemed to pull him toward a fate he could scarcely grasp. Maester Luwin struck the dais with his staff. Lords of the North, hear your liege. Silence rippled outward. Ned stepped forward, voice measured. He spoke of Lyanna's deathbed, of oaths of hidden blood. Gasps punctured murmurs as truth peeled back years of deceit. Some cried that dragons had burned their grandfathers. Others recalled that Torrhen Stark had bent the knee only to spare his people from ruin, and that Targaryen rule had not always been cruel. When at last Ned lifted the circlet, voices fell to hush. I give you Jon Stark, born Aegon Targaryen, true son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen, yet raised amidst our snows, tested by our winters, forged by northern steel. Ned's words rolled like thunder. I name him king in the north and heir to the Iron Throne, should the realm acknowledge ancient right. Will you stand behind him? The hall erupted, not in cheers nor jeers, but in a grinding clash of loyalties. Great John Umber bellowed first, slamming a meaty fist upon the table. "A king's a king for what he does, not where he drops from a woman's womb. The lad has Stark grit, he trained with my own men. I'll follow him." Mage Mormont rose next. "The bear remembers Lyanna's kindness. If her son wears a crown, Mormont's steel defends its shine." Roose Bolton's pale eyes flicked like a snake's tongue. "A dragon's egg hatches fire. Will you risk letting it scorch the north?" But Lord Wyman Manderley, fat and clever, laughed. "Fire warms in winter, my lord, and the realm grows colder by the day." He bent knee, folding vast girth with surprising grace. The Manderleys answer the call of winter and fire. One by one, descent yielded to momentum. Even Bolton's lips curved into a thin, reluctant smile as he dipped his head. John watched, stunned, as lords knelt before him. Lords who had mocked his bastardy. Men who had dismissed him as a kennel pup of dubious parentage. The weight of their vows settled heavier than the circlet Ned placed upon his brow. When all voices had sworn, Ned drew ice from its scabbard. The ancient Valyrian steel gleamed dusk-dark. He pressed the flat of its blade to Jon's shoulder, then the other. "Rise, Jon Stark, sixth of his name, king in the north, lord of Winterfell, and rightful heir to House Targaryen." Jon rose, knees trembling, heart thundering louder than the hall's cheer. He wanted to claim this destiny for Lyanna, for a mother he would never know. Yet fear gnawed. Fear of Robert's wrath, of Lannister plotting, of Dragon's expectations. But when Arya darted forward to clasp his hand, her grin fierce as needle's point, warmth spread through his chest. If family believed, perhaps so could he. That night the gods would pulsed with torchlight. Snowdrifts sparkled under heart-tree boughs, red leaves whispering like restless ghosts. The lords gathered again, kneeling upon frost-hardened ground as Ned and Jon stood before the weirwood. A half-moon silvered Jon's circlet. Steam spiraled from maesterlit braziers in which scented pine resin burned, mingling with prayer breaths. Ned slit his palm with a dagger honed on ice and pressed the wound against Jon's, the mingling blood hissing where it met cold air. "North beyond south," Ned intoned, echoing words older than crowns. "Blood of my blood, bond of my bond. Stark by heart, Targaryen by birth, king by will of gods above and below." Jon repeated, voice steady despite trembling limbs. "Stark by heart, Targaryen by birth, king by will of gods above and below." He felt sapsticky heart-tree scent swirl into lungs, seep through pores like sacred ink. In this moment he sensed more than mere solemnity, an awakening, as though the old gods themselves pondered this mingling of ice and fire. When vows were sealed, wolves howled, a chorus that rang through battlements and startled ravens from rookery perches. Ghost, Jon's albino direwolf, emerged from the shadows, crimson eyes blazing. The beast nudged Jon's wounded palm, then lifted its muzzle skyward, adding its spectral voice to the cry. The lords shivered yet stood resolute. To Northmen, omens came in fur and fawn. Within a day, ravens soared south bearing letters signed by Jon. To the Eyrie, a plea to his mother's sister, Lisa Arryn. To Riverrun, a respectful entreaty to Catelyn's father, Lord Hoster, bound now to two kings. To Sunspear, an olive branch proffered to House Martell, whose grief for Elia still festered like slow poison. And to King's Landing, a formal declaration that the North had acclaimed its own liege, sworn to peace yet prepared for war. Ned chose his retinue carefully. Ser Roderick to command Winterfell's guard on the journey, with Jory Castle at his side. Maester Luwin for counsel. Catelyn would remain as Queen Regent, guiding Robb until Jon's rule rooted. Bran, Arya, and Rickon stayed as well, children still, though growing fast. Sansa's tears flowed when told she must leave. She dreamed of Southron courts and golden princes. Yet Ned insisted she ride with him, both as hostage to northern goodwill and as shield against Cersei's designs. Jon, newly crowned, would hold Winterfell while Ned confronted lions in their den. At dawn, painted rose gold across battlements, Ned met Jon at the stables. Horses snorted clouds into crisp air. Inga Whitemane stamped impatiently beneath Ned, while Jon stood beside a black stallion gifted by Great Jon, named Stormbreaker for its wild temperament. Ned clasped Jon's forearm. Rule justly, trust your maester, but trust your heart more. The lords will test you, hold them to their oaths. Jon's circlet glinted as he bowed. And you, father, he caught himself. My lord? No, my uncle. 7 hells. This is madness. Ned smiled despite the sorrow. Call me father still. Blood may define birth, but love defines kinship. He swung into the saddle, lines of fatigue carving deeper into his face than age alone could account for. Remember, winter is coming, but when ice meets fire, the world may yet forge anew. As Ned's party rode through Winterfell's gates, horns sounded across ramparts. Small folk watched, mouths agape, as their lord, now father of a king, departed to face the south storm. Jon walked the battlements above, Ghost pacing at his heels, watching the dwindling column of horses until it blurred into the white horizon. Responsibility settled upon him like a mantle of iron. The North had chosen, but choices drew consequences like carrion draws crows. Somewhere beyond forests and rivers, Lannister ears twitched at whispers of a new king. Somewhere along the King's Road, a royal retinue returned from the far north, bearing a temperamental king, a viper-tongued queen, and a court of schemers who scented blood. Jon closed his eyes, listening to Winterfell breathe, fires crackling, kennels yipping, a blacksmith's hammer ringing in rhythmic promise. He felt his heart beat in time with the fortress, ancient and enduring. If he was to wear this crown, let it be hardened by the same fires that tempered northern steel. He opened his eyes to Ghost's unblinking stare. "Well, old friend," he murmured, "we've a realm to guard." Ghost's tail flicked. Snowflakes drifted onto circlet and fur alike, melting into droplets that gleamed like morning stars. Somewhere far to the south, a lion roared. But here in the ancient heart of the north, a wolf and a dragon had claimed their rightful place. 3 days after Ned's departure, ravens returned. The first bore Lord Tywin Lannister's seal, stamped in crimson wax sharp as a dagger. Jon sliced it open while Maester Luwin hovered, quill ready. The North is sworn to the throne, Tywin wrote in crisp, impersonal script. Any claim otherwise is treason. My king will respond decisively. There was no signature, only the golden lion glaring from blood-red wax, as if Tywin assumed his name spoke louder than ink. The second raven carried softer scrawl from Lord Renly Baratheon, youngest brother to the king. Intriguing rumors reached Storm's End. I should like to meet this king of winter and discuss mutual interests. Renly's tone was playful, yet ambition dripped beneath the jest. Jon penned careful replies, deferring to Ned's arrival in King's Landing. Still, unrest brewed. Reports filtered in, Lannister riders massing along the Gold Road, Riverlords uncertain which banner to follow, whispers of Tyrell plots at Highgarden. Winterfell's courtyard rang day and night with steel on steel as Robb oversaw additional levies. Even Bran practiced archery from Hodder's shoulders. One frostbright morning, a rider thundered through the gates bearing a stark sigil of Carhold. Lord Rickard Karstark arrived by noon, his sons at heel, demanding audience with his new king. Jon met them in the Great Hall. Karstark's beard hung like snow-caked moss, eyes sunken from sleepless travel. "My king," he said, bending knee. "Word from Deepwood Motte. Iron-born longships raid our western shores, emboldened by northern uncertainty. They test your mettle already." Robb's jaw clenched. "They'll find the north forged of harder iron." Jon stood, cloak shifting like a storm cloud. "Send ravens to Lord Balon Greyjoy. Remind him the north remembers alliances broken, lives taken. If he seeks war, he shall have it, but will not provoke the Kraken while lions loom nearer." Karstark nodded, grim satisfaction etched deep. "Shall I harry the raiders until they scuttle back? Defend our coast, keep the villages whole, but hold the line only. Save blood for foes who cross deeper waters." As Karstark departed, Maester Luwin whispered, "You juggle krakens and lions both. Pray neither slithers through your fingers." Jon exhaled. "Pray to old gods or new, they grant enough time. Time, however, is a fickle servant." In the Red Keep, Ned Stark found serpents swirling behind every tapestry. Varys whispers spoke of Lannister plots to seize Winterfell while Ned served as hand. Cersei's gaze sharpened when Sansa, bright-eyed and naive, gushed about her new king brother. Robert raged half-drunk at news of Northern Rebellion, yet slumped quiet beneath the weight of old friendship and older promises. "Ned," he slurred one night, "tell me it's lie. Tell me you didn't crown a bloody Targaryen under my nose." Ned met his gaze unflinching. "Would you slay another innocent child to feed your vengeance?" The king's eyes glittered with tears and ale. He hurled his goblet across the chamber. "You twist the knife, Stark. 7 hells. Why does honor taste so bitter?" Across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen felt a dragon's stirring ripple through her unborn child. Dreams flared of a brother named Aegon, dead in truth, but alive in rumor, bending knee before a weirwood tree as snows swirled. She woke swearing she smelled pine and cold steel. Ser Jorah, half-dreamt at her bedside, spoke of Northern Rebellions, your grace. But she was already reaching for quill and parchment, penning letters to Northern kings who shared her blood. On Winterfell's ramparts, Jon watched Horizon's line for the first Lannister banner that would dare breach the neck. Night birds wheeled overhead, silhouettes slicing the aurora of northern lights that shimmered faint beyond cloud banks. The winds carried scents of pine and distant storm. Robb joined him, sword strapped across his back. "The men are restless, but eager. They say our banners mirror those Torrhen Stark raised against Aegon the Conqueror." Jon smirked. "Let's hope our fates differ. I have no interest in bending knee to anyone, nor in leaving my crown at another's feet." "Nor do I." Robb leaned over the battlements. "But if it comes to war, I'll march by your side. It may come sooner than we wish." Jon's fingers brushed the direwolf-carved hilt of his sword, no longer the simple castle-forged blade he'd practice. With but Valyrian steel gifted by Lord Mormont in gratitude. Longclaw, reborn with a direwolf pommel of polished white stone. As he tightened his grip, ghost white fur brushed his leg. Ghost sat poised, nose twitching. Below, the courtyard thrummed with life. Blacksmiths shaping arrowheads, seamstresses stitching new Stark dragon standards, children chasing each other beneath torchlit archways, blissfully oblivious to the tides of destiny. Jon breathed deep, tasting snow. "Tell the men to feast tonight. Tomorrow we ride north, Carhold, Bear Island, Deepwood Motte. I'll see every holdfast swear with eyes and hands." Robb raised a brow. "You mean to tour the north yourself?" "A king's strength lies in the hearts of his people. I must know them, and they must see their king is flesh and bone, not legend penned by ravens." Robb chuckled. "You'll freeze your royal arse before you finish, but I'll ride with you." "We leave at dawn," Jon said. "Right to Theon at Pike. He may yet hold sway with his father. If Balon values coin more than pride, perhaps he'll stay his kraken tentacles. And if he won't, then winter's fury will rend him from coast to coast." Jon's gaze drifted to the stars, where hunters chased frozen skies. "But first, we must weather the south." Lightning flashed distant beyond Treeline. Ghost growled, low and guttural, as thunder rumbled a promise. Jon did not flinch. He answered the sky's roar with silent vow. For too long he'd been snow shadow, bastard at the feast's edge. Now he was king, of wolves, of winter, of a legacy forged in blood and promise. And he would not let realms or gods or dragons undo what was sworn beneath Hearttree eyes. Far to the south, in the Red Keep's Godswood, Ned knelt beneath a pale southern weirwood, its red leaves sparse, its face carved shallow by undulls who feared the old ways. He felt distance like an ache in frostbit fingers. Catelyn had written of Jon's coastal tour, of Karstark fealty, of small folk cheering new coin minted with direwolf and dragon entwined. Pride tightened Ned's throat, yet letters from Renly hinted at alliance. Stannis' silence loomed heavier than any curse. Whispers of Lannister troops mustering at Harrenhal sent dread rippling. Varys materialized like vapor. A crown for snow and flame, how poetic. But lions sharpen claws while wolves roam. Ned rose, hand on ice. Say your piece. The queen prepares an order for your king's arrest. She means to strike before snow roots deepen. I am not your king. Not mine, perhaps. But the realm watches. Blood spilled in the wrong corridor may drown us all. Ned sheathed his sword. Then let the realm watch. If Cersei strikes, the North will answer. Varys' eyes glinted, wet and knowing. And dragons yet unborn will weep flames upon what's left. But Ned Stark, hand no more but father of a king, simply turned his back on the spider's riddles. He walked toward the Red Keep's exit, feet steady despite stone's treacherous cracks. For Winterfell, for honor, for the memory of a sister's dying gasp, he would face lions with the calm of oncoming winter. Behind him the pale weirwood watched, its red sap tears glinting like rubies in torchlight. In Castle Black's austere halls, Lord Commander Jeor Mormont received word by Raven and chuckled so hard his ale sloshed onto the maps before him. The boy always had more in him than Southrons saw, he told Maester Aemon. A Stark indeed, a dragon in blood. The realm grows interesting, old friend. Maester Aemon, blind eyes milky yet shining with distant memory, sighed. Targaryen blood may wake slumbering things, some gentle, others terrible. Perhaps. Mormont dabbed the ale with a sleeve. But if winter smothers us, I'd rather have a dragon's fire on our side. Aemon's smile was sad. Fire can warm or burn, depending on who wields it. As Jon embarked on his northern tour, ravens chased each other across skies heavy with portent. From Old Town, archmesters whispered of comets burning cold blue. From Skagos, wildling raiders captured by the Night's Watch spoke of dead things that would not stay dead. And in a tavern outside White Harbor, sing-songs told of a king born beneath stone wolves and crowned among snow ghosts. A king who mingled ice and flame to forge hope against the longest night. But even hope can draw daggers. In the shadows of Deepwood Motte, a hooded figure knelt before a makeshift altar of twisted roots, dripping blood into the earth. North or south, wolf or lion, all must kneel before the true God. The shadow whispered, as flames licked crimson through cupped palms. Let the king of winter burn. Yet Winterfell's hearths glowed brighter than they had in years. Children learned to dance as nearly forgotten songs of the old kings returned. Ballads that spoke of ice forging shields and dragons kindling hearts. Jon listened as minstrels strummed new verses, each line a prayer wrapped in melody. He remembered nights at Castle Black he'd never serve, dreams of a wall he'd never take the Black to guard, and felt the bittersweet tug of abandoned destinies. He stood on a balcony overlooking the courtyard. Snowflakes spiraled, catching torchlight like fleeting jewels. Below, Arya sparred with a wooden sword against Syrio Farrell, the Braavosi water dancer Ned had hired secretly before departing south. Each movement was a whisper of wind, a ripple in pond water, a dance of life and death. Jon watched, marveling at his sister's ferocity, a fire of the north mirroring his own. Ghost pressed against Jon's leg. The direwolf's ears pricked at distant footfalls. Robb emerged from the hall, cloak billowing. Word from father, Robb said, breath clouding. The queen has him confined. No charges yet, but Varys fears blades in backrooms. Jon's jaw tightened. Summon the banners. If King's Landing imprisons Lord Stark, the North rides south as one. Robb's eyes sparked, blue and unflinching. I'll ready the ravens. South of the neck, a wedding unfolded in the twins, the phrase binding yet another thread in their tapestry of self-interest. Walder Frey cackled at rumors of northern kings and southern plots. He'd play both until the stronger prevailed. He feasted on roast boar, grease dripping from chin, while scribes penned letters to King's Landing. Offers of crossing, supplies, coin. Loyalty to the crown so long as coin clinked. Yet somewhere in his labyrinthine keep, one Frey maiden clutched a stolen note describing a wolf dragon king and dared dream of a nobler north. From Dawn's true-bed lords to the far-flung watchtowers of Skane, the realm inhaled, lungs filling with simmering tension. Ravens flew, swords sharpened, alliances forged in firelit rooms. Yet amid the clamor of destiny's forge, Jon Snow, born Aegon Targaryen, stood in Winterfell's Godswood, circlet glinting beneath snow-laden boughs. He knelt before the heart tree, feeling its bark against knuckles, and whispered, "Old gods and new, I did not seek this crown, but I will bear it for those who cannot. Grant me wisdom to wield fire without burning those I love, and ice enough to steel my heart when sacrifice is demanded." A breeze curled through crimson leaves, carrying an echo like faded lullaby. "Promise me, Ned." The plea merged with midday hush until both were indistinguishable from the sigh of snow. Jon rose, heart thudding, and touched the circlet. It felt neither warm nor cold, but alive, pulsing with the heartbeat of North and Dragon alike. In the distance, horns sounded. A scout returning. Jon strode to the battlements, ghost at heel, Longclaw at hip. A rider galloped through the gate, cloak snapping Lannister red. Yet blood streamed down his shoulder. He dismounted, collapsing before Jon as guards seized him. Pooling crimson darkened snow. "Message for the king in the north," he rasped, pressing a silken envelope into Jon's hand. Jon knelt, snapping the wax. Inside lay a single slip of parchment, stained by blood yet legible. "Your father dies at dawn unless you bend the knee before sunset." Signed with an elegant flourish, Cersei of House Lannister, Queen Regent. Winds howled. Snowflakes hardened into ice slivers that pricked skin like needles. Jon closed his fist around the note, felt paper crumple against gauntlet steel. Robb appeared beside him. "What news?" Jon's voice was ironclad calm. "We ride south, tonight." Cold crept into Jon's lungs like splinters of ice as he crumpled the blood-spattered note and stared over the battlements. Winterfell's courtyard, moments before a blur of routine toil, slowed to a hush as word rippled from guard to groom. King Jon had received news of Lord Eddard's peril. The torches lining the inner wall seemed to gutter in sympathy, their flames wavering beneath a sudden, gusty swirl of snow. Ghost gave a low growl, hackles rising, red eyes fixed not on the messenger now unconscious on the stones below but on something far beyond the walls, an intangible dread weaving through the wind. Robb's gloved hand closed around Jon's elbow. "You heard me," he said. "I'll ready the ravens. We can have horns sounding in every holdfast by dawn." Jon forced breath past the vice on his chest. Tiny motes of frost clung to his lashes as he answered, voice pitched to steady steel. "No horns yet. A scream in the dark draws hunters before we're armed." "What a father?" Robb's words shot like arrows, sharp and unrelenting. "Cersei's killed before. She'll do it again." Jon unfolded the note, eyes tracing each stroke as if sheer focus might burn through ink to reveal some weakness. "Your father dies at dawn unless you bend the knee before sunset." No more, no less. Blunt and precise as a headsman's axe. He folded it once, twice, until only a sealed corner remained visible, the crimson wax impression smeared by the lifeblood of the courier himself. "We'll free him," Jon said, quiet enough that only Robb and Ghost heard, "but not by flinging half-readied men into southern teeth. Cersei wagers I'll panic, charge south blind, and give Tywin an excuse to crush us piecemeal." He turned, surveying the courtyard where sparks hissed from the forge. "I won't give her that war." Robb's jaw flexed. "What then? Wait while dawn comes and goes." "Dawn in King's Landing is half a world away from dawn here," Jon answered. "And Lannister threats often hide a serpent's coil. They may mean to keep father alive as leverage, unless I prove rash." His eyes narrowed. "Send ravens in secret, not alarm. Call our banners to muster at Winterfell under a harvest-gathering pretext. New levy registrations, extra seed grain, whatever excuse keeps spies guessing. Then ready 30 riders, the fastest from each house. We'll carry word north and south without lighting beacons for every crow between here and the Vale." "You'll ride with them?" "I'll ride alone ahead of them," Jon said. One king on a swift horse can slip where an army stumbles. I'll ride to Greywater and plead the neck from Howland Reed. Crannogmen can cloak a host. With their guides we move unseen until we choose to be seen. Robb frowned. Leaving Winterfell without its king invites uncertainty. Some lords may waver. Which is why you'll rule in my stead, Jon replied. Name you Prince of Winter, acting hand. Guard mother, our sisters, our brothers. Hold the bannermen steady. If winter wolves smell weakness, they'll test it with teeth. Robb's protest died on his lips, less from reluctance than the dawning weight of command. He nodded once. Very well, but promise you'll take at least one sworn shield. Jory? Osha? Even Theon knows the bog paths. I'll take Osha, Jon decided. She walks the wild as easy as the Crannogmen. And Ghost, of course. No other blade trusts me like his. Keep Longclaw here. Its legend is needed at Winterfell more than at Moat Cailin. Robb exhaled, a fog of resignation. Give me the note. I'll show Maester Luwin and burn it in his hearth. Best no careless eyes recall that seal. Jon handed it over, their gloves brushing. Within 3 days I'll have Reed's answer. Within 10 we'll have a silent road south. Ready the men to march on the 11th. But send none until my raven returns. And if no raven comes, then choose your own hour. You're a Stark, you'll know. Jon laid a palm on his brother's shoulder, feeling the trembling pulse beneath wool and mail. The realm will try to make us play at lions and krakens and dragons. Remember, we're wolves first. Robb managed a thin smile. Aye, and winter wolves hunt in packs. Ghost gave a rumbling grunt as if in agreement, then trotted alongside Jon toward the stair. Snow fell thicker now, big drifting flakes that muffled hoofbeats and footfalls alike, gentling the night even as hearts hardened for war. Hours later, beneath the high-timbered ceiling of the great hall, Robb convened a quiet council. Torches sputtered low, half-shuttered to cloak the gathering in half-shadow. Lady Catelyn sat rigid, lips a bloodless line as Luwin read Cersei's demand. The maester's voice trembled only once, on the word dies. Yet that single quiver rippled through gathered lords like a chill across water. I counseled Lord Eddard to keep his counsel, Ser Roderick muttered when Luwin finished. But lions have him by the tail now. His whiskers bristled like iced hedgerows. Roose Bolton's pale eyes reflected the low flame, cold moons in gaunt sockets. We possess the Kingslayer, he mused aloud. Tyrion Lannister sits our honored guest, iron-shackled, yet breathing. A prisoner for a prisoner, an eye for an eye. Tribute moves queens faster than ravens. Catelyn's gaze darted to Bolton, then to Robb. She shook her head sharply. Kingslayer or imp, the exchange invites treachery. Jaime would gut Ned the instant they cross paths. And Cersei would see us shamed if she could claim her brother was forced. Besides, Robb intervened, tone even. The imp escapes too easily. Castles open for his gold. Hostages flourish in chains but slip keys through shadows. Lady Meage Mormont thumped her fist on the oaken table. Then we sharpen spears. A bear's cub does not parley with wolves who bite its dam. A wolf parleying with a lion may yet tear out a throat, said Galbart Glover, grimly amused. But only if it chooses the ground. They debated until wax pooled thick on floorboards and the moon set behind slate clouds. At last Robb summarized Jon's plan. Silent muster, covert ride, alliance with the Crannogmen. The lords, having witnessed Jon's crowning and Ned's honor a score of nights earlier, needed little convincing. Even Bolton dipped his head, though his thin lips pursed in iron curiosity. Catelyn rose. Keep the ravening hush. My father's bannermen watch the neck as keenly as Lannister sells words. Discretion is our sword until the right moment to draw steel. Her palm lingered on the table's edge, knuckles white. And pray to all gods that Jon finds Reed before Lannister claws close on Ned. Jon left Winterfell before dawn, cloaked in plain furs, his circlet left behind in the crypts, an ironic safety, entrusting his crown to the Stone Kings rather than wearing it into southern snares. Osha rode at his side astride a shaggy northern Garen. Behind them paced Ghost, paws crunching encrusted snow. Theon, summoned hastily from the kennels, handed Jon a small leather satchel. Smoked venison, dried apples, and a sealed horn of manderly mead. He smirked in that insufferable Greyjoy fashion. "You'll owe me tales of marsh spirits and willow maids when you return, your grace. I'll owe you more than tales if the Krakens raid White Harbor while I'm gone," Jon replied, voice light despite the tension. "Guard the coast with Ser Roderick's men. Keep spear points inland and sails in sight." Theon saluted, half mocking, half solemn. "Every Kraken loves warm hearths and easy plunder. We'll salt their backs and send them home." Jon spurred his horse. Snow swirled, encasing Winterfell's towers in ghostly veils as he slipped through the outer gate. Behind him the drawbridge lifted, chains clanking into muffled thunder. The world narrowed to hooves pounding frozen ground and the whisper of wind through bare branches. Dawn's smear of pink on the eastern sky faded behind clouds as he headed southeast, toward the tangled mires of the Neck. 3 long days he rode through hoar-frosted pines and along icy streams, rarely stopping except to let Ghost drink or to let Osha scout ahead for bandits. The nights were hard black, the ground too frozen for comfortable campfires, but Osha, raised beyond the wall, built tiny twig fires cunningly concealed by overhanging boughs. They ate in silence, wary of ravens that seemed too curious, their eyes glinting gold. Jon wondered how many spies Varys had in feathers, how many songs reached King's Landing through wings. On the second evening, as they skirted the edge of the marshlands south of the White Knife, they found arrow-scarred trees and boot prints churned into the slush. Osha crouched near a stump bearing fresh notches. "Iron-born skirmish," she muttered, or sells words from across the Bight. No banner either hides their pride or sells it to the highest purse. Jon knelt beside her. The sap bled amber, still sticky. 2 days old at most, he judged. "If Lannister coins pay Ironborn to raid our eastern shore, we'll have more than Krakens harrying our flank. They've taste for blood once they smell weakness." Osha flashed a grin, sharp as broken ice. "Best show them the North remembers its teeth." They pressed on. At dusk, the ground softened, sucking at hooves. Ghost picked his way gracefully where horses struggled. Osha guided them along an overgrown deer path that wound through mist-shrouded peat bogs. Will-o-wisps danced in distant haze, phosphorescent pockets that could lure unwary travelers to drowning. But Osha navigated by moss lines and star glimpses, eventually leading them onto a knoll crowned by an ancient weirwood stump where they slept above the marsh fog. Before dawn, ghost-gray ribbons of light teased the horizon. Jon awoke to Ghost's low growl. Shapes moved among reeds below. He slipped hand to dagger and nudged Osha, but the figures advanced noiselessly, scaling the knoll with uncanny grace. Moonlight caught woven grass cloaks draped over slight forms, Crannogmen. The leader, slight but sinewy, removed a reed mask to reveal a woman's face painted with green swirls. She raised open palms. "We greet the Wolf King," she said softly. "Our master awaits." Jon nodded, easing his grip. "Lead us." They followed barefoot scouts along a narrow plank path invisible until they stepped upon it. Planks lashed between tussocks, wending deeper into mist. Once, Jon glanced down to see Ghost padding on a parallel bank, water lapping at his paws. The direwolf's reflection shimmered like pale fire beneath the surface. Hours passed in dreamlike slowness until willows thinned and reed huts emerged, half submerged, linked by vine bridges. Lantern light shone gold through cattail screens. At the largest hut, Howland Reed stood waiting. Stark slender, eyes weary yet bright, the Lord of Greywater bowed low. "Your Grace," he said, voice brittle with remembered debts. "Lyanna's son comes at last." Jon felt his throat tighten. "You were there," he murmured. "Tower of Joy, yes. I held Ser Arthur Dayne at sword point while Lord Eddard whispered promises to your dying mother. I know the truth of your blood." Reed's gaze flicked to Osha, then back. "The neck is yours, if you'll wield it wisely." "I come not as conqueror," Jon said, stepping onto the hut's platform. "I need safe passage for my host, and scouts to blind the south while we march. Howland gesture. D for him to enter. Inside, peat smoke swirled over a central hearth, its low flames licking at a cauldron of fish stew. Reeds covered the floor, soft and springy. Reed offered seats of woven rush. Osha remained near the door, wary eyes scanning rafters. Reed poured frothy green liquor into wooden cups. "Safe passage we grant," he said once they drank. "But heed the bogs. They swallow heavy armor and hauberks. Move light, carry little. My people will lend skiffs for crossing deeper wetlands. Guide your columns by moon and heron calls." He set the cup down. "Yet I warn you, war in the neck costs dear. Every footstep disturbs spirits older than kings. Shed no blood here if you can help it." John nodded. "My quarrel lies south of the swamps. Then speed is your ally." Reed unfurled a hide map, north drawn in charcoal strokes. "There's a hunter's causeway seldom watched, south of Moat Cailin, hidden by willow thickets. We'll mask it with broken carts to fool watchers into thinking it abandoned. Your vanguard should cross at moonrise on the 10th night hence. Lannister eyes fix on the King's Road, not the mire." John's pulse quickened. 10 days suits our muster." He leaned over the map. "Moat Cailin itself? Half in ruin," Reed said. "But the bastard of Bolton garrisons it now at your brother's command, with my leave." A shadow crossed his face. "If Roose rules through his son, flayed banners may greet you, not direwolves." John's jaw tightened. Bolton's oath still binds him. "Yet I'll send word to Robb to reinforce with men he trusts. I thank you, Lord Reed, for your counsel and your loyalty." Reed inclined his head. "Lyanna was sister to my heart as well as yours. Her son will always find safe harbor here." He offered a small leather bundle. Damp moss wrapped around arrowheads carved from black dragonglass. "The marsh yields strange gifts. Take them. Shadows gather beyond our petty wars." John accepted, puzzled. "You believe the tales of dead things?" Reed's eyes glittered in the hearth glow. "I have seen dead things walk, my king, and I have seen dragonglass speak their language." He smiled, thin but sincere. "Keep it close." While John sealed his alliance in Greywater, Winterfell bustled beneath a veil of outward normalcy. Under Robb's order, smithies hammered bar iron ostensibly for new plowshares, though each plowshare possessed suspiciously keen balance when affixed to a haft. Fletchers claimed to restock hunting arrows, their barrels filled with bodkin points apt for punching through plate. Seamstresses stitched surcoats displaying no blatant crest, yet all bore hidden loops for last-minute attachment of Stark dragon sigils. Ravens flew north to Bear Island, east to White Harbor, west to Torrens Square. Each carried a coded utterance referencing Long Harvest and Frostpack, phrases agreed upon at the council to summon Levy quietly. In the glass gardens, Catelyn paced among warm citrus scents and trailing vines. Sansa trailed her, eyes puffy from tears each dawn brought. "Mother," she began once, "if we ride south will I see Joffrey?" Her voice trembled with conflicting hopes, foolish girl's affection and the dawning dread of what monsters' courtiers could be. Catelyn halted, pressing a thumb to Sansa's cheek. "Your father is Joffrey's prisoner," she said frankly. "The Lannisters hold him to break us. Whatever feelings stir in the prince's breast, they are shackled by Cersei's hand. Cast off childish fancies, my sweetling, until we know friend from fiend." Sansa nodded miserably. She wore a blue gown stitched with silvery leaves. Not Lannister crimson, not northern gray, a color between. Perhaps she thought neutrality might spare her heartbreak. Catelyn sighed, wishing again that Ned had never agreed to foster girls among southern vipers. Yet regrets were luxuries she could neither afford nor feed. She kissed Sansa's brow and resumed walking. Outside, Arya dashed along the gallery rail, balancing as a cat might, wooden practice sword tucked in belt. Syrio Farrell shadowed her stride below, shouting instructions. Catelyn paused to watch. Arya leapt, rolled, sprang, slicing air with an imaginary blade. Fear for Ned etched deeper lines on Catelyn's face, but pride warmed the chill. Her girls learned to wield steel in truth, not just courtesy. She wrapped arms about herself and murmured silent prayers to the seven, and to the old gods for good measure. In King's Landing, dawn's first light cast the red keep in a garish hue of rose and ash. Ned Stark stood at the window of the Tower of the Hand, for Lannister guards posted outside. His house arrest, Cersei claimed, afforded him comfort if not freedom. Yet each comfort mocked him. Soft pillows he could not enjoy, a desk he could not leave unattended, quills but no ravens granted. Sansa visited each afternoon, delivering soft-spoken pleas to obey the queen. The child's letters, clearly dictated, reassured the North of Robert's goodwill and urged Jon to kneel. Ned burned them in the hearth as soon as she left. A knock. He turned. Varys slid inside like a draft. The spymaster's slippers made no sound on marble. "Lord Stark," he cooed. "War looms. You must act or be acted upon." "I've acted enough for one lifetime," Ned growled. "Others must pick their ground now." Varys tilted his head. "The boy in Winterfell chooses. Cersei fears him more than armies. Blood and crown in one. She means to parade you in chains on the steps of Baelor's September at midday tomorrow, to force his submission under throngs of small folk cheering a captured traitor." Ned's jaw clenched. "And if no submission comes? The crowd will demand a head." Varys's expression tightened. "One need not behead a man to break him. Public humiliation may suffice." Yet with each moment the queen's patience thins. "Why warn me? Because realms fall when fools quarrel. I prefer them upright, humming quietly beneath king and council." Varys folded pale hands. "Send a message. Bend enough to give Cersei pause without snapping your son's resolve. Confession for clemency, perhaps." Ned barked a laugh. "Confess what? Bringing truth to a false king? Protecting a child from murder? Confess treason you never planned. Swear fealty you never mean to honor. Live to see your children safe. The queen may spare you a cell instead of a block." Eddard's gray eyes hardened like fresh-forged steel. "My honor means more to me than my life. Honor feeds few children." Varys's whisper was nearly lost in wind. "Dead men dine at no table. Consider Lord Stark. Dawn grows ever nearer." He vanished. Ned turned back toward the narrow sea of roofs, red tiles catching sunrise. Somewhere north, Jon bore the weight of a realm. Ned clenched trembling hands behind his back. Honor indeed burned bright, but love, fierce as wildfire, burned brighter still. 10 days after Jon's departure, Winterfell's wards thrummed like taut bowstrings. Robb rode daily among levies encamped beyond the walls, drilling squads in silent maneuvers. Armorers issued boiled leather jerkins painted to appear plain at distance yet reinforced with hidden rivets. Lord Karstark's sons arrived with 500 horsemen. Lord Manderly's tall sons Wylus and Wendell brought spearmen disguised as fishermen crews rowing upriver for netting practice. On the 11th night, a flock of ravens burst from the rookery, wings black against torchlight, short messages to each encamped lord. "The marsh is open. March at moonrise, voice no banners until Greywater." Knots of men broke camp quietly, extinguishing fires with snow, and slipped in columns southward through shadowed woods. No herald's trumpet announced their departure. Only the soft crunch of thousands of boots betrayed them to silent trees. Catelyn watched from the battlements with Maester Luwin beside her. The hush felt unnatural, a battlefield's breath before arrows fly. "May the mother guide them," she murmured. Luwin offered a faint smile. "And the warrior guard them. The stranger may wait." Jon rejoined his vanguard on the causeway 2 nights later. Robert Glover led 300 picked men, Sir Wendell Manderly 200 billmen, Lady Meage Mormont 50 fierce spears, and a hush of skirmishers drawn from mountain clans indebted to House Stark. Crannick scouts guided each band across deeper bog channels in reed boats, their oars muffled in cloth. Not a torch flared. Lanterns were shuttered. Even armor was draped in mud-stained cloaks. Ghost padded ahead, barely a blur in fog. Jon rode near the front, Osha at his side. Reed's people whispered warnings of Lannister outriders stationed at the ruins of a watchtower west of Moat Cailin. 18 riders, reported a Crannoc boy no older than 10. Barrels of pitch, horns of signal. They light beacons if they spy a feather. Jon considered. Can your hunters silence them? The boy nodded once. We strike at dusk. You pass by dawn. The attack came swift. A flight of frog spears through throat and eye before horns lifted. Jon watched from a hollow as ghost-white arrows found chests, and direwolf leaps tore at throats. Ghost emerged blood-flecked but unharmed. They buried bodies under peat and collapsed the watchtower's firewood store into the swamp. Still, Lannister scouts were only the first obstacle. Moat Cailin itself lay straddling the King's Road, its 3 watchkeeps half-drowned but formidable. Ramsay Snow commanded the garrison, wearing Bolton pink flayed man on muddy banners. He greeted Jon's quiet envoy with a sly grin. My father serves you, your grace, as do I, but wolves seldom trust flayed men, and flayed men seldom trust wolves. Perhaps your cause requires harsher measures than a polite welcome. Jon eyed the bastard. My cause requires loyalty, not cruelty. A pity, Ramsay murmured. Cruelty is a surer coin. Ghost bristled. Jon suppressed an urge to let the direwolf test Ramsay's boast. Instead, he leaned into the bastard's space. I offer you honor among the first ranks if you stand. But if you waver, he glanced at Ghost. You'll learn a wolf's bite strikes quicker than skins peel. For a moment, tension coiled like a spring. Then Ramsay's grin widened. I'll keep your road clear, my king. The neck remains yours. But Jon caught a flick of something hungry in that smile, and he resolved to leave Stark men to watch the Watcher. The host streamed past Moat Cailin under thick dawn fog. Northmen moved like river eels, silent, armored in brown cloaks, dirks strapped across their backs. Crannogmen guided them along hedges until pine woods swallowed the marsh and the high ridge of the neck fell behind. By the time sun broke, the entire vanguard had vanished south of the bogs, leaving only matted tracks quickly brushed away by reeds. On the 13th night, under a sky pricked by cold stars, Jon's host reached the banks of the Green Fork. Edmure Tully's outriders met them among frost-white aspens. By then, rumors of Ned's impending execution and of a wild northern king had swept the riverlands. Some small folk fled villages, fearing dragons. Others gathered to cheer as Jon's columns passed, throwing down garlands of withered flowers or half-empty skins of cider. Edmure himself rode out, red trout banner snapping. You keep strange company, he greeted Jon, eyeing Crannoc guides melting back into shallows. Your uncle Brynden warns Lannister outriders prowl further west. They'll taste our scouting parties before week's end. Jon dismounted, joints stiff. How stands Riverrun? Hosts muster, but slow. Lord Hoster's health wanes. My sister is far north, and uncle's temper clashes with Malisters like flint. Edmure rubbed frost from his beard. Yet Riverrun stands for Stark and Tully blood. We'll ride with you. Jon clasped Edmure's forearm. Then we ride soon. But first, fish feed wolves, we need the crossing. Edmure grinned, relief plain in his blue eyes. I'll raise the drawbridge the moment your vanguard appears. Lord Frey will squawk about tolls, but let him tally after the lions are caged. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep, another dawn broke across the narrow sea of red tiles. Ned Stark woke in chain-bound dreams of the Tower of Joy, Lyanna's grief-hollowed face begging one final promise. Sweat chilled his skin as he sat up. A Lannister guard unlocked the cell door. The Queen summons you, he barked. They led Ned through dim corridors to a small council chamber repurposed as tribunal. Cersei sat flanked by Grand Maester Pycelle and Lord Janos Slynt. Lord Tywin's chair stood empty. The lion had not yet returned from Casterly Rock, but his shadow seemed carved into the stone. Sansa knelt nearby, tear-streaked cheeks turned upward toward her father. Ser Island Payne loomed at the room's edge, sword of ice-pale steel resting across mailed knees. Cersei's smile was carved from winter glass. Lord Stark, your King Jon, is it? Marches with traitor banners. Bend the knee, confess your conspiracy, and plead mercy. I may let the boy keep his northern snows while you take black cloth to your wall. Ned's eyes flicked to Pain, to Sansa, back to Cersei. He clenched jaw and soul in equal measure. "Your prisoner I am," he said, voice hoarse. "But I have conspired only to keep the peace Robert sought. Your threats will not bend my son to falsehood." Cersei tapped lacquered nails on mahogany. "You misjudge me. I warn, not threaten. At midday bells a crowd will gather. You will speak repentance. If you do, you live and your daughters return home. If not," she gestured toward Pain. The silent night raised his pale blade of fraction. Candlelight glinted along Valyrian runes.
Ned swallowed.
A hush pressed like a weight. Honor clawed at his throat. Fatherly dread strangled it. At last he exhaled. "I'll speak," he said, "but let no harm come to Sansa or Arya." "Arya?" Cersei arched a brow. The little wolf vanished. Perhaps she scurried north already. "No matter, one daughter suffices." She rose. "Prepare him. Noon approaches." As guards led Ned away, Sansa tried to rise, sobbing, but Pycelle restrained her gently. Ned met her imploring gaze. "Be brave," he whispered. "Winter winds blow hardest before they still." Beyond the city walls, Arya Stark crouched in a darkened stable among straw and horse dung, needle clutched tight. She'd escaped the keep through forgotten passages learned from chasing cats months before. Gendry, the bull-headed smith's apprentice, crouched beside her, broad shoulders making a better shield than straw bales. They'd seen posters proclaiming a public repentance at Baelor September. Arya's gut twisted. Confession? She doubted her father would confess to what he hadn't done. Yet Pain's sword loomed in her nightmares. She glanced at Gendry. "We have to help him. Help a lord as high as that?" Gendry's deep voice rasped low. "How?" "Chaos helps," she said, repeating Sirio's lesson. "Cut one rope in a net. The fish may slip." They hatched a plan. Slip into the crowd, start a brawl or a fire near the dais. Any distraction. Gendry grimaced but nodded. Better dying swinging than watch heads roll. On the Green Fork, Jon's camp stretched the length of an autumn wheat field, though autumn had fled. Frost rhymed tents and turned breath to smoke. A scout burst through reed screens, breathless. "Riders, 12. Approach from the south. Black banner with red fox and 3 white towers." Jon frowned. "Blackwood and Fry?" he guessed. "Odd companions." He rode out with Meege Mormont, Robert Glover, and a dozen outriders. They met the party on a low hill above the river. Ser Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, led Blackwood archers. Beside him rode Ser Stevern Fry, gray and frail yet eyes shrewd. Brynden saluted. "The twins beyond open at dawn," he announced. "Lord Fry throws his gates to king in the north, with conditions. Bride for a Fry son, squire for a grandson, and rivermen kept from plundering his herds." Jon exhaled steam. "We accept the crossing. Discuss the rest after war is won." Ser Stevern's thin lips twitched. "Lord Walder does not lend bridges on promises." "Then remind him promises hold more worth than broken bones," growled Meege Mormont. Jon raised a hand. "Lady Mormont speaks plain but true. Tell Lord Walder I agree to marriage into House Fry. After the king's father is free and my crown secure. Names to be chosen with his council." Ser Stevern's eyes glimmered, brow dipped. He bowed and wheeled his horse. Brynden remained. "News from the west. Tywin marches north with 20,000, camped near the Golden Tooth. Your window narrows." Jon thanked him, then turned to his officers. "We cross tomorrow. I'll ride on the eastern bank, flank the twins. If Tywin comes east of the Trident, we strike. If he marches west, we cut his tail." Glover nodded. "What of King's Landing?" "By now father kneels under a sword," Jon said. "We aim to draw blades away from his throat." He gazed toward the horizon where dawn-lit river mist. "And if they harm him, the lion's den will hear the wolf's howl at its door." Within Baelor September, sunlight cascaded through rainbow windows, pooling across marble mosaic. A gathered throng hummed with anticipation. Small folk who loved drama, nobles eager to watch a legend fall, faith militant with star-studded breastplates glinting. Cersei watched from a balcony, crowned and radiant, flanked by Kingsguard. Next to her stood Joffrey, features schooled into bored disdain. He twirled a golden strand of hair absently. Below, Sansa sat among septas, pale and trembling. Arya, disguised in dirty peasant cloak, wove through the crowd, Gendry at her back, scanning for vantage points. Songbirds fluttered near rafters, disturbed by the rising murmur. And then horns blared. Eddard Stark shuffled into view, wrists manacled, gray cloak dragging. Pain loomed behind. Murmurs rippled. The Wolf of Winterfell looked frail, older, stooped. He was driven up the steps of the dais where a gallows beam cast long shadow. Septons chanted. Ned raised eyes, glimpsed Sansa, then a scrawny boy with mismatched garments slipping among throng. Arya? He breathed. Grand Maester Pycelle unrolled a scroll and intoned the Queen's script. Treason, false crowns, deception, apology. Ned listened, each accusation tasting of ash. His heart hammered. He thought of Jon riding south. Wolves in marsh, lords in gloom. He pictured Lyanna in her bed of blood. At last Pycelle offered the parchment. Quill trembling. Ned took it but did not sign. Instead he turned toward the crowd, voice hoarse but carrying. I stand before you, Eddard Stark, once Hand, once Lord of Winterfell, tainted now by southern lies. His eyes fixed on Sansa, then Arya. I came south to serve my king and protect his realm. I confess, his voice caught. I confess I found treason here, but it was not mine. He drew breath. It was the treason of those who would murder children to hide their bastardy, of those who wear crowns they have no right to claim. I will not bend the knee to usurpers, nor will my son. Gasps erupted. Sansa screamed. Angry roar thundered from balcony. Joffrey leapt to his feet. Kill him. Kill the traitor now. Cersei's face blanched. She gestured frantic at pain. The executioner stepped forward, sword gleaming. Arya shoved through bodies. Gendry barreled after her. But the crowd surged away, terrified. Bells clanged as if the sept itself cried alarm. Outside, a sudden commotion echoed through city streets. Horns, clanging gongs, a roar of voices. Ned's eyes widened. Not terror but hope. The captain of the city watch burst into the sept, breathless. Your Grace, he shouted to Cersei. Riots in Flea Bottom. Fire set, gold cloaks overwhelmed. Cersei's expression split between fur. Why in panic? She hissed at Pain. Now! Pain raised his blade, but then a shaft whistled from the nave. An arrow sprouted in his right shoulder. Shock flashed across his scarred face. The sword clanged to marble. Another arrow hissed, burying in a Kingsguard's thigh. Panic erupted. Small folk screamed. Knights formed shields. At the sept's rear, Brynden Tully stepped from shadow, longbow in hand. Behind him, a dozen Riverland archers knocked fresh shafts. Protect Lord Stark, he bellowed. Chaos ruled. Pain tried to lift the sword with left hand, but Brynden's third arrow slammed into his breastplate. Squires dragged Ned back as blood spread across his torn doublet. Cersei shrieked orders. Joffrey cursed, but the faith militant hesitated to loose on knights bearing no banners. Arya darted up the steps, needle drawn. She reached her father as Whiteline the Septon toppled. Gendry hefted a fallen mace, fending off a gold cloak. Go!
Ned Rosped.
Arya, flee north.
No.
She cried, hacking a rope holding the gallows beam. It crashed down, blocking Pain's lunge. The city rumbled, thunder of hooves on cobbles. At the sept's great doors, the crest of a stag above crossed warhammers appeared. Renly Baratheon's personal guard, green cloak swirling. Ser Loras Tyrell strode with sword dripping blood. Stand down! Renly roared behind him. By order of the small council, Cersei's tyranny ends. Cersei's eyes burned venom. Traitors, all of you. Renly ignored her, turning to Ned. Lord Stark, we part as allies if you'll join me. My men hold the streets. Ned swayed, blood-soaking chains. Arya braced him. "I'll join any who free my children," he rasped. Renly signaled. Guards rushed forward to unshackle Ned. Loras Tyrell held Pain at sword point. Sansa fainted into a Septa's arms. Above, Cersei retreated, flanked by 2 Kingsguard, green eyes sparking with promised vengeance. Joffrey screamed curses but followed, crown askew as they vanished through a side door. The crowd fragmented, some cheering, others fleeing. Bells tolled in frantic rhythm, echoing across the city. News of the Sept tumult raced faster than ravens, riding tongues of merchants and whispers of whores. By sundown, the Iron Throne Hall stood empty. Cersei and Joffrey barricaded within Maegor's holdfast, while Renly convened allies in the Tower of the Hand. Somewhere in the chaos, Varys slipped Ned and Arya through a postern gate, where Ser Davos Seaworth awaited in a river skiff to carry them down the Blackwater. Sansa remained hostage within the Red Keep, but alive for now. Renly's green banners snapped above the city, but Tywin Lannister's host crossed the Trident at nightfall, burning farmsteads en route to Harrenhal. War no longer stalked the realm. It sprinted. Across the Twins, Jon's army poured into the riverlands. He rode at the van, direwolf pelt streaming behind. Reports of Ned's rescue reached him days later via Raven. Relief nearly buckled his knees, yet new peril replaced the old. Cersei's hold on King's Landing tottered, but Tywin's host threatened to carve a crimson path north, cutting Riverrun from Winterfell. Jon convened war council under a spreading chestnut near Seaguard. Robert Glover pointed to a map pinned by daggers. Tywin marches here, near the Blue Fork. If he takes Riverrun, he splits the Riverlands and bars our return road. Meege Mormont slammed gauntlet fist. We strike first. Wolves do not wait for hunters to find their den. Jon studied the inked rivers, hills, supply lines. We'll divide our force, he said. Robet, Meege, Blackfish, ride east to meet Edmure's levies and screen Riverrun. I'll take 1,000 horse across Maidenpool Road to threaten King's Landing from the rear. Tywin must choose. Defend his queen or risk his flank. And your father? Asked Wendell Manderly. My father will reach Storm's End under Renly's guard. Once safe, he'll raise Stormlanders hungry for a king who's not a monster. Perhaps then lions will realize they've cornered a wolf pack, not a lone pup. Lightning forked distant skies, silent. Jon's blood thrummed with the storm's pulse. War had come, swift, brutal, inevitable. Yet amid dread he felt a surge of fierce clarity. Each decision sharpened by purpose, each mile of riverbank by duty owed. He touched the dragonglass arrowheads at his belt and thought of Howland Reed's warning, of dead things walking, of a winter beyond war. But first, the living must survive each other. In the north, beyond the wall, an icy gale howled across a field of domed snow mounds marking buried ruins. Shadows moved, gaunt figures with blue eyes, silent as frost itself. At their center strode a tall, crowned wight whose blackened fingertips trailed cold mist. It paused, sensing something stirring far south. Fire meeting ice, long dormant blood waking. The wight turned its gaze toward the distant glow of conflict, and a spear of ancient ice cracked as it clenched fists. Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, king of winter and heir of dragons, wheeled his horse beneath storm clouds, host surging behind. Wind whipped his cloak, carrying wolf howls and steel songs alike. Somewhere ahead, Tywin's banners flared crimson. Somewhere behind, father and sister raced the river's course. And somewhere above, storm thunder heralded the reckoning of kings and queens too long complacent. Jon lifted Longclaw, though still sheathed, and shouted a command. Thousands of voices answered. Wolves, bears, trout, giants, echoing across frost-brittle fields. The march resumed under wheeling ravens and distant lightning, toward a horizon blazing with the promise of ruin, and, perhaps, the chance to forge a realm anew where ice and fire might live as one. As the first drops of frozen rain struck his brow, Jon whispered to Ghost at his side, "Ride hard, my friend. Dawn may bring blood, but after blood comes light." Ghost's red eyes gleamed in answer, and together they rode into the dark, where war awaited, and the fate of Starks, dragons, and the realm itself would be tempered in the storm's relentless forge. The sky above the Green Fork was a brooding expanse of dark slate, the moon smothered behind racing clouds that seemed to gallop with the same urgency as Jon's vanguard. A raw east wind hissed along the riverbanks, flattening winter-withered reeds and keening through gaps in half-frozen mud. The smell of snow hung heavy, promising the first true blizzard of the season if the gods chose to loose it. Yet the army moving south did not slacken pace. The rhythm of thousands of boots beating earth became the pulse of a single enormous creature stalking its prey. Jon rode at the point of the column, Ghost loping just ahead, white fur luminous even under thin starlight. The direwolf's paws left almost no mark in the soft bank, but Jon felt every subtle lift of the animal's head, every twitch of its nose reading scents far beyond a man's ken. When Ghost suddenly halted at the crest of a gentle rise, Jon reined in with him, scanning the darkness until his eyes adjusted. Across the river, a ribbon of black water reflecting fragments of clouded light, fires winked to life like tiny embers. They scattered along a distant tree line, too ordered for foragers, too many for travelers. Glover urged his horse up beside Jon. "Tywin's outriders," he muttered, "or Lord Piper's hunters erred on the wrong bank. Either way, that's steel." Meege Mormont joined them, Snowfrostrum sparkling on barefur pauldrons. "If lions, they'll send scouts by dawn. We need eyes closer." Jon nodded. "We move camps tonight. Shift into the riverine forest where the banks curve west. The trees will shroud our cook fires, and reeds will muffle sound." He turned to his small council. "Meege, take your spearwives and circle north. Cross at that gravel shallows we passed. Flank their pickets, do not engage. I want prisoners, not corpses. We learn their disposition before risking a pitched field." She grinned, teeth flashing ivory. "The island bears hunt silent as shadows. We'll fetch a lion tail for your haul." Glover snorted. "Bring the head as well. Tails wag no secrets." The two lords departed, their detachments melting into dark. Jon watched them go, then raised the visor of his helm and breathed cold so sharp it stung his lungs. Each decision now felt less like commanding and more like sliding a stone across ice, never certain where the cracks might spider. He thought of Ned somewhere along the Stormland's coast, of Renly's green banners fluttering over a city still half loyal to a captive queen, and of Sansa sleeping or sobbing in a tower room under Lannister guard. Resolve hardened like iron in the forge of that thought. He spurred his horse and signaled the column forward. The army divided as silently as 3,500 men could. One column hugging the main road, another slanting into the woods, each torch hooded so only faint glow bled through seams. Jon dismounted once camp boundaries were set, instructing his captains to pitch silent watch rotations. Fires were kindled inside pits scooped deep into earth, banks piled high around them to keep light hidden. In such gloom, the flames looked like the hearts of buried stars, their warmth more whispered promise than roaring comfort. He strode among tents, head uncovered to feel the air shift. Snow began to fall, tiny, tentative grains that hissed on the coals and vanished. Men wrapped cloaks tighter, but conversation remained low, almost reverent. They all felt it, a hush before thunder. At the camp's far edge, he found a makeshift corral where messengers' horses stamped and huffed white breath. Osha leaned against the gate, sharpening a curved dirk. Her eyes followed Jon. "Wind smells of iron," she said. "Battle soon. If Meege returns with live tongues, we'll know which way the iron points," Jon answered. He scratched Ghost's neck. The direwolf pressed against him, ears pricked northward into the dark. "Rest if you can. I'll keep first watch." Osha's sardonic smile flashed. "King who stands watch himself inspires bards. But bards don't fight your wars. Sleep when you're dead, Jon wondered if that was meant kindly or as a jibe. Either way, the wildling woman was right. His men drew strength from seeing their king among them, not hidden in a command tent. He paced the perimeter until the first hint of gray coaxed shape from night's bulk. By then snow fell thicker, lining cloaks in white, icing mustaches. Dawn might come late under such weight. Sudden horn blasts cut through hush, 1, 2, muffled but near. Jon's heart kicked. He swung onto his horse without waiting for saddle straps and galloped toward the sound. Through skeleton birches, he glimpsed shadows moving fast. A spearwife barreled up, face smeared with wet earth. "Captives!" she shouted. "Meej's got 3. Jon wheeled and followed to the rendezvous point. A shallow dell where spearwives bound prisoners to a felled log. The lions were hardly men at all, boys, maybe 14 to 16. One bleeding from a scalped patch on his cheek. Meej squatted before them like a bear looming over cubs, her axe across her knees. "Lannister outriders," she rasped. "Claim a host of 1,200 making camp downstream. Vanguard only, main force lagging a day." She looked to Jon. "Your orders." Jon dismounted. He studied the boys. Crimson and gold cloaks mud-caked, sigils unrecognizable beneath filth. Fear glazed their eyes. The younger whimpered when Ghost approached, jaw parted to show glistening fangs. Jon motioned Ghost back. "You'll not die today," Jon told them quietly, "but you will speak truth. Swear on your 7. Lie and you'll feed my wolf." They nodded frantically. He questioned them. Numbers, supply wagons, commanders. They confirmed Meej's report and added that Ser Adam Marbrand himself rode with the vanguard, scouting for ground to field Tywin's army beyond Riverrun. Jon listened, weighing options. Strike fast to scatter Marbrand and delay Tywin, or slip past and threaten the king's lands to pull Tywin south. When the prisoners finished, he turned to Meej. "Bind and gag them, keep them fed. We'll trade them after victory." To the spear wives he added, "Return to camp, ready for forced march." As snow brightened to ashen daylight, Jon gathered his captains. "We march south, skirt the vanguard under cover of woods, and strike Marbrand's supply wagons at dusk. Glover, take 100 picked archers, shirt your arrows black to hide fletching. Hit their baggage, then fall back riverside. Meej, with me, 2 columns of foot to smash their perimeter once confusion starts. Blackfish holds the reserve across the ford, cutting escape." Glover frowned. "And if Tywin's main force closes faster? Then we bleed their outriders and vanish. We're wolves, not boars. Make them chase shadows." Before noon they moved. Snow thickened to blinding sheets. Men muffled helms with dyed cloth. Wolves of black and white padded among spearmen like mythical guardians. Crannock scouts marked the route with reeds stuck into drifts, invisible to anyone unfamiliar with bog lore. Jon pressed forward, each hoofstep muffled, until through drifting flakes shapes slowly emerged. Campfires sputtering in wet, ringed by hulking silhouettes of supply wagons loaded with tents and flour barrels. Glover's archers fanned out along ridge above. Bowstrings waxed against wet. Jon signaled, an upraised clenched fist. Lightning-quick twang followed. Arrows hissed downward, thumping into tarp roofs, setting some alight where pitch-soaked tips met damp canvas. Lantern oil flared despite snow. Shouts rose. Meej spearwives charged from treeline, axes cleaving into startled guards. Jon galloped along the camp's edge, blade flashing as he severed reins of draft horses to send wagons careening. Chaos exploded. A horn blew, Marbrand's banner unfurled, a red stallion rearing. He rallied a knot of armored riders, but falling snow and smoke from burning grain blinded them. A Mormont spear impaled one horse. The rider toppled. Jon plunged into the swirl, Longclaw dancing like quicksilver. He blocked a mace and countered pommel-smashing helm. A second rider lunged. Ghost's white bulk leapt, fangs closing on exposed throat. Blood splashed pink against snow. Within moments the baggage circle was a pyre, flames licking through broken crates, smoke suffocating snow. Jon sounded retreat, archers covered withdrawal, arrows still whistling at any who rallied. Then Northmen melted into white woods, leaving behind charred fragments and scattered sacks of winter barley staining ground. Marbrand's pursuit stumbled, slowed by drifts and fear of unseen wolves. Back among birches, Jon regrouped. Casualties: 6 men dead, 12 wounded. Enemy. At least 60 slain, supplies destroyed. Spirits soared despite numb fingers. Meej clasped John's forearm. A good bite, she said. Lions bleed easy. Bleeding isn't death, John replied. Tywin will roar louder now. Night fell, bringing heavier snow that erased tracks. They camped under low bramble canopies, every fire buried beneath collapsed snowbricks to mask light. As men slept, John sat outside, back against a slim fir. Ghost settled beside him, head on paws. The night's hush was deep, but in his mind wheels turned. Tywin slowed, yes, but now aware of a northern king stalking his flank. And south, Ned's fate uncertain despite Renly's coup. He dozed briefly, dreamt of the heart tree in Winterfell's gods would bleeding endless red sap into snow. Lyanna stood weeping beside it, dress whipping in wind like raven wings. When John reached her, she melted into mist, revealing Sansa clasped in Lannister chains. He awoke with a start, sweat cold despite freezing air. At dawn, ravens arrived, their black wings sodden. 2 messages. One from Robb at Winterfell informing of restless bannermen demanding news, another from Storm's End. Davos Seaworth's sigil scratched awkwardly. John tore it open. Lord Eddard Stark delivered safely to Storm's End under Lord Renly's protection. Stormlanders rally, but Stannis sails from Dragonstone with fleet, direction unclear. Cersei entrenched in red keep with gold cloaks loyal. Queen's men plot to break siege. Sansa still hostage. Will send word. Relief washed through John, tempered by new concern. Stannis Baratheon, rightful heir by birth, now stirred. Would he accept Jon's kingship or strike south for his own claim? And Davos, sworn to Stannis, still aided Ned. An olive branch or subtle spy. Glover approached, frost layering beard. Our scouts report Tywin's vanguard limping west. Marbrand withdrew to meet the main host near Stonehenge. We bruised them well. Good, Jon said. We slip east toward Harrenhal. If we hold the ruined castle, we sever Tywin from Blackwater and threaten King's Landing's grain. Harrenhal's cursed, Glover warned. Men fear its stones. Let the curse guard our walls then, Jon replied. We march. Harrenhal loomed 3 days later, its colossal melted towers rising like frozen waves wrought in basalt. Snow shrouded jagged battlements, softening ruinous angles, but the sense of vast desolation radiated intact. Ravens circled shattered keeps, croaking greetings to new tenants. Jon rode beneath the broken gatehouse, its portcullis rusted half open, and felt the chill of history slide over skin. Tales of Aegon's dragonfire melting stone, whispers of mad kings' tortures, ghosts of kings and fools. Yet walls, even half crumbled, still made bastions. Northmen poured in, lighting braziers in cavernous halls, setting watch atop towers where stairs remained. Glover's engineers repaired gates with oak planks hacked from nearby forest. By night's fall banners unfurled from high ramparts. Direwolf over dragon, half torn but defiant against storm. Jon walked the echoing hall called Kingspire, floors littered with snow sifted through missing roof tiles. He paused near the hearth, where his men arranged stones for a new pit. Flickering torchlight cast dancing shadows up the warped walls. The weight of command pressed heavier here. He'd chosen to occupy a seat of ancient tyranny. Could he forge hope inside ruins born of fear? He rested a hand on Longclaw's hilt and murmured, "Stone can be remade, so can legacies." Robert Glover joined him. Maester claims chimney flues still draw, amazing given the ruin. Fires will warm men tonight. Warm hearts too, Jon said, but keep guard doubled. Tywin may strike faster than we think. As though conjured, horns blared from the outer yard, 2 notes, distant. Jon and Glover sprinted to the gatehouse parapet. Below, in swirling snow, a lonely rider approached bearing a white banner slashed with crimson. The rider held aloft a lantern and bowed from horseback. Jon ordered the gates unbarred enough for the messenger to enter. The man removed his helm. Young, sharp-cheeked, cheeks reddened from wind. He knelt in the courtyard. "Ser Benedict Crakehall bore me your grace," he said. with message from Lord Tywin. Jon motioned him rise. Speak. Lord Tywin Lannister proposes parley at dawn upon the causeway north of Harrenhal. 2 principles each, no blades drawn. He offers safe conduct sealed by 7 and old gods alike. Glover scoffed softly, but Jon considered. Tell Lord Tywin I will come, with 1 companion and my direwolf. Dawn upon the causeway. The messenger bowed, remounted, and rode back into Snow's paling curtain. Glover turned to Jon. You trust Lyon's honor?
No, Jon answered.
But trust gives options. If Tywin seeks terms, he may doubt his position. That doubt is blade enough. Before dawn bruised the eastern horizon purple, Jon rode out with Meege Mormont at his side, ghost trailing like a silent centene. Snow still fell but lightened. The causeway stretched between half-frozen wetlands, stone-cracked yet passable. Tywin awaited at its midpoint, crimson cloak stark against white wasteland. With him stood Kevan Lannister, visor raised. A standard-bearer held a polearm from whose tip a cloth drooped white. Jon halted 15 paces away. Ghost sat, amber eyes never leaving Tywin. Meege stayed silent, grip on axe iron tight. Tywin's gaze cut sharp as a whetted knife. King in the north, he said, voice carved from cold marble. Your strike at my vanguard was bold. Destruction of my grain costly.
Costly war begehts costly bloß, Jon replied.
You occupy Harrenhal, Tywin continued. From here you threaten my supply line to King's Landing. Yet you also trap yourself inside walls too vast for your numbers. Once my full host arrives, you'll starve. Perhaps, Jon said, or perhaps your coffers starve while you siege empty stone. I could slip west, burn your forges at Lannisport, return to Winterfell before spring. Tywin's lips twitched. Faint amusement or annoyance, hard to tell. You speak boldly for a youth raised as bastard. Jon felt no sting. He met Tywin's stare. And you, my lord, rely on gold and fear. Both melt under flame. Enough, Kevan muttered, but Tywin lifted hand. Let him speak. I offer peace, Tywin said. Withdraw beyond the neck. Release my outrider prisoners. Resume fealty to the Iron Throne. And I guarantee Lord Eddard's life and the safe return of your sister. The North may govern itself with minimal interference. A generous settlement. Meege barked laughter. Generous as a bear trap baited with honey. Jon raised a palm to still her. My father is free. My sister still hostage, yes, but King's Landing is contested. Your queen may not sit the throne much longer. Tywin's eyes narrowed. Renly's coup lacks lawful claim. Stannis marches to rectify. He leaned forward, breath frosting. Choose wisely, boy. Align with rebels and find yourself crushed between Baratheons. Jon weighed the words. Tywin tacitly admitted concern. His queen isolated, his grain burnt, his vanguard mauled. He responded carefully. Release Sansa first, then we discuss terms. Tywin's nostril flared. The girl is bargaining chip. You will not haggle Lion's share from Lion's claws. Ghost snarled, stepping closer. The messenger horse sidestepped, but Jon kept calm. Then you waste dawn. War it is. Tywin studied him, cold cunning behind golden flecks of his eyes. Very well. War then. Pray your walls hold. He turned, cloak swirling scarlet, and mounted. Kevan followed. They rode back to their lines without another word. Jon exhaled. Meege spat into snow. 2 days before their siege lines form, she muttered. We hold. We do until we don't, Jon said. And when we don't, we break out. They returned to Harrenhal at sunrise, shapes of Lannister pikemen already appearing among distant mists. Horns moaned low, prolonged. Jon strode the ramparts, addressing men. Lions surround us, he shouted, voice ringing. They think wolves will cower behind stone. But stone remembers dragonfire, and dragons run in our veins. He raised Longclaw high. Let them come. Every day we hold is day our allies gather. Every arrow we loose costs them gold. And when they falter, we strike from ruins they fear. Roars answered, bellow of the great John, howl of mountain clansmen, bear growl of Mormont women. Confidence surged. That afternoon, word arrived from Riverrun. Edmure engaged Lannister forces attempting to cross the Red Fork, turning them back with heavy losses but suffering wounds himself.
Sebindens arose tinatanemi ranks.
War's tide washed uncertain. The first rams rolled up by dusk, hulking ironheads pushed by chains of armored men. Northmen rained spears and rocks, boiling tar, scavenged pitch from Harrenhal's collapsed stables, splashed over attackers, igniting where torches struck. Screams pierced twilight. Snow quenched some flames but hissed like enraged snakes. Rams withdrew, leaving blackened corpses and broken beams. That night Jon climbed the twisted ruin of Tower of Dread. From its sundered pinnacle he watched Lannister fires ring the castle, hundreds of sparks flickering through snow curtain, as though stars of a fallen sky. He clutched the dragonglass arrowheads Reed had gifted. In the cold they seemed to hum faintly, as if attuned to distant forces stirring beyond man's wars. He remembered Reed's words, "Dead things walk." A shiver not from wind ran spine to tailbone. A raven fluttered to the parapet. Its leg bore black ribbon, Night's Watch seal. Jon unfurled the parchment. Wilding's mass at Frostfangs. Lord Commander asks aid. Castle stores low. Reports of pale walkers increase. Winter falling early. Jon closed eyes, pain sharp. Duty to realm, duty to north, to father, sister, men dying outside these walls, now the wall itself called. He whispered, "I cannot be everywhere." Ghost nudged his hand, tongue warm against gloved fingers, grounding him. He breathed a promise to answer when he could. South, along the Stormland's coastline, Ned Stark stood on Storm's End ramparts beside Renly Baratheon, salt wind whipping their cloaks. Davos Seaworth lingered a pace behind, one hand on knife hilt, more habit than threat. The morning sun broke through ragged clouds, gilding sea waves. Farther out, black sails dotted horizon. Stannis' fleet approach. Renly's jaw tightened. "Brother comes," he said. Sword drawn, no doubt. Ned watched the dark armada. "I know Stannis only through Robert's stories. Stern, unbending." He sighed. "An unbending man may break his house before bending knee to a boy king or to my son. We must speak before fight." Renly glanced sideways. "You trust him." "I trust his honor more than his mercy." Renly nodded once, signaling Davos. The smuggler dipped head, vanished downstair. Hours later, longboats ferried Stannis ashore. He strode up the beach in black armor, cloak emblazoned with red flaming heart of R'hllor, a new sigil superimposed over crowned stag. At his side walked a woman in red silks, her hair like liquid flame, eyes glinting amber. Nearer, Ned saw shadow twist strangely along her steps. Behind came knights, few but grim. Parley took place in the old shield hall of Storm's End, banners of Durrandon and Tommen clashing in dusky gloom. Stannis regarded Renly coldly, then Ned. "You stand tall for traitor," he said.
"I stand for realm," Ned answered.
"And for truth." He told Stannis of Joffrey's bastardy, Cersei's plot, Tyrion's blame for crimes not his own. Stannis listened, jaw rigid. "It is my right to claim throne," he said at last. "Not Renly's, not a wolf's bastard son dubbed King of the North." Ned's temper stirred. "My son is no bastard. Rhaegar's blood runs in his veins, rightful blood by marriage to my sister. The realm needs peace, not chains of succession forged from spite." He stepped closer. "Help us topple Cersei, free my daughter, then hold a great council. Let lords decide who wears crown." The red woman spoke, voice like warm wine. "The council of men cannot guide the will of R'hllor. The Lord of Light chose one king, Stannis." Renly snorted. "Chosen by who? A fire in a brazier." Stannis' knuckles whitened on sword pommel. "Do not mock what you don't understand." Tension coiled.
Ned interposed.
"Bicker later. Lannisters besiege Harrenhal even now. Tywin's host outnumbers my son 2-1. Cersei plots within the Red Keep. If we fracture further, realm burns. Stannis glared at Renly. Yield, little brother, and ride north with me. We'll break the lions, then seat me on throne. Renly laughed. Yield to a burnt stag? I have Tyrell roses at my back. 50,000 swords. I will bloom in King's Landing before your fleet anchors. Ned saw pride escalate. He raised voice. Enough! Silence fell. If we cannot find common ground, at least delay bloodshed between us until lions fall. Form separate fronts. Stannis along Blackwater's mouth, Renly from Storm's End. Squeeze Cersei within. When she yields, we treat. Stannis considered Ned long. A temporary truce, he allowed, until Lion's Head on spike. Renly inclined head. Agreed. But Ned noted the Red Woman's smile, thin as a blade. By the second week of siege, Harrenhal's great kitchens belched steam again. Cauldrons simmering horse stew made from mounts slain by Lannister arrows. Bread stretched thin, but river fish supplemented. Glover oversaw arrow-fletching workshops crafting shafts from stripped ceiling beams. Spirits held, though walls groaned in nightly cold. Tywin's catapults hurled stones daily, some filled with burning pitch, but Harrenhal's towers were already half collapsed. New cracks mattered little. Northmen sheltered in inner courtyards, letting heavy masonry bury in useless courts. When ladders were raised, boiling tar and crossfire repelled assaults. After each failed attempt, Jon ordered night sorties. Small groups scaling external rubble to gut sentries, burn siege towers. Ghost often led, crimson smile glowing under moon. Then, on the 22nd night, a white raven arrived from the citadel, alighting on rampart near Jon. Its presence meant one thing: official declaration of winter's arrival. Snow already blanketed earth, but now winter truly sat its throne. Jon held the scroll, wax unbroken, feeling the world subtly shift. Garrisons would stockpile, alliances freeze or fracture, travel hamper. Tywin's supply lines would suffer, yet so would his own. He convened council by guttering torch. Winter declared, he announced. Murmurs. Tywin may break siege soon rather than starve here. He turned to Glover. Any word from Robb? A raven yesterday. He marches with Karstark, Umber, and Bolton reinforcements south, but roads clogged near the Twins. Ice on rivers slows. Jon tapped the map. If Tywin withdraws to feed his host, we pursue. If he stays, we harass until hunger turns lion against lion. Meej leaned on Axe. And King's Landing? Renly and Stannis pressure Cersei, Jon said. But one wrong stab could turn city into slaughterhouse. We must relieve tension by drawing Tywin away. That night, horns again, but different. 3 long notes, echoing from Tywin's camp. Scouts reported movement before dawn. Siege towers dismantled, baggage trains forming. By midday, Crimson lines withdrew west, leaving smoldering campfires and dead behind. Relief washed through Northmen, tempered by caution. Jon led riders to pursue but kept main host within walls. Skirmishes harried retreat. Archers picked off stragglers. Mormont spearwives cut loose supply wagons, freeing grain horses and scattering flour like snow upon snow. Yet Tywin retreated methodically, leaving rear guard of Westerland's knights. Glover pressed to rout them, but Jon reigned too. Lions cornered might strike desperate. After 2 days, the rear guard broke across the tumbling tumblestone. Tywin's main host marched toward Lannisport's winter stores. Jon assembled captains in Harrenhal's sundered throne room, once seat of Harren the Black. We hold Harrenhal with garrison of 500, he declared. The rest ride east to break Cersei's chains while Tywin licks wounds. We take by storm the King's Road, join Renly's siege. Cheers, though some hesitated. Leaving monstrous stronghold to skeleton crew seemed risk. Jon trusted Reed's scouts to shuttle messages. He appointed Ken Van Reed as Castellan, with Blackfish Brinden to advise. Supply stores gleaned from Tywin's abandoned wagons would suffice. On the 3rd dawn, banners struck, gates opened. Jon's host rode south, 2,000 hardened Northerners, Riverlanders, and Bear Island warriors, flanked by 100 Kranich skiffs along Blackwater tributaries. Snow still fell but lighter. Bitter wind kissed cheeks like knives, yet hearts were buoyant. They'd endured siege, forced Tywin to retreat, and now bore winter's fury toward the Queen's walls. Inside the Red Keep, Cersei paced her solar. Torchlight flickered across shelves of dusty tomes. Shadows twisted into clawed silhouettes. Pycelle babbled about dwindling grain. Varys peddled rumors of Tyrell Gardens feeding Renly's men. Qyburn, hooded, whispered of potions to calm the small folk riots. Joffrey sulked on velvet cushion, bruised from a thrown onion during last balcony address. Cersei's mind burned with numbers. Loyal gold cloaks, 3,000. Food, 2 weeks. Wildfire stores, ample though pyromancers wanted coin. She imagined wolves howling beyond gates, dragons in Boy King's blood. She vowed never to surrender. When ravens arrived with Tywin's withdrawal, her fury nearly cracked goblet in hand. She flung wine across map, shaking. "Father abandons me," she hissed. "He chooses his gold mines over his blood." Qyburn's placid smile widened. "Then new fires must be kindled. A king's enemies may fear what darkness can birth." She eyed him warily, but desperation birthed strange bedfellows. Ned Stark and Stannis stood upon Storm's End rampart again, this time side by side. Ravens had brought news of Tywin's retreat and Renly's march north to King's Landing, leaving minimal garrison at Storm's End. Ned's relief at Jon's triumph mingled with dread. 3 armies converging on the city. Wolves, stags, roses, and inside, a caged lioness with wildfire. "Your son's victory shifts board," Stannis admitted, gaze still stony. "Tywin will recall to guard the west. Lannister Queen left alone." "Alone and cornered," Ned said. "She'll lash like viper." Stannis grunted, then cut her fangs. "We sail Blackwater, seize harbor, open gates from within while Renly presses landward. Wolf Cub arrives to tip scales." He turned to Ned. "Serve me as hand if I take throne. Your honor, my right, realm healed." Ned considered. Honor demanded truth. Truth said Stannis rightful by Baratheon line. But Jon, his son, carried blood of ice and fire, crowned by North that would never kneel again. Ned felt tear between love and duty as sharp as any blade. He exhaled. "If throne must be won, let realm decide after war," he said at last. "I will aid any who shields the innocent and frees my daughter." Stannis accepted with curt nod. "That is enough for now." Jon's column reached the Blackwater rush as moon set in sliver of silver behind snowbanks. Renly's campfires glimmered across frozen fields south of city, thousands of flickering flames painting horizon gold. Tyrell tents formed neat lines. Stormlander pavilions more ragged. Banners, gold rose, horned white hart, swayed. Jon's scouts relayed arrival to Renly. Soon a stir swept camps. Jon, Glover, and Meade rode into Renly's command tent, where warmth and scent of spiced wine welcomed. Renly rose, smiling broad. "King of Winter, we meet at last," he said, clasping Jon's forearm. His eyes widened at Ghost prowling behind. "Gods, that beast is half myth." Jon inclined head. "Dire wolves guard the north. We guard realm now, too." They sat at a long map table strewn with carved tokens. Brienne of Tarth, towering, stood silent behind Renly. Loras Tyrell lounged near wine. Davos Seaworth entered moments later with Stannis behind, unsmiling. The sudden tension iced air. Renly seated himself. "I invited Stannis to treat," he said lightly. "Unite banners and starve lions." Stannis's jaw tightened. "A council of kings in a tent of boy and wolf. Only one may sit the Iron Throne." Jon spoke first. "All talk of thrones can wait until Queen falls and the realm breathes." His gaze swept both. "How many innocents die if 3 armies storm the city separately? Better we coordinate." Renly sipped wine. "And who commands?" "Each takes a front," Jon said. "Stannis by sea, Renly by southern gate. my force from King's Road north. Signal horns for simultaneous assault at dawn 3 days hence. Siege towers built from Tyrell lumber. Wildfire caches mapped by Stannis' spies. Stannis studied Jon. Wolves seldom share kill. We share because winter hunts us all, Jon replied. And because my sister's life hangs in that keep. Silence. Brienne's hand rested on sword pommel. Davos kept eyes on Stannis. Finally Stannis nodded. Very well. At dawn 3 days hence. Renly lifted cup. To victory. Jon met him with mug of watered ale. Ghost bared teeth in silent toast. The next hours blurred. Engineers planning sappers' tunnels. Tyrell carpenters crafting scaling towers. Stannis' fleet maneuvering upriver under night cover. Jon's Northmen erecting mantlets and sharpening salted oak stakes. Snow ceased. Skies cleared, causing air to bite harder. Fires dappled plain like constellations. Jon walked among his men, offering quiet words. He found Arya's old dancing master Syrio among a troop of water dancers Renly had hired from Bravos, thin swords glittering. Syrio bowed. "Many years little wolf has grown?" he asked. "She fights," Jon said, pride swelling, "but still small. I hope she waits at storm's end." Syrio winked. Small water still cuts stone given time. That night Jon sat alone upon a small rise overlooking Blackwater. Torches along city walls shined sickly orange. He imagined Sansa beyond, hair like copper gold, reciting songs to keep fear at bay. He clenched hands until knuckles ached. Footsteps approached, light, measured. It was Loras Tyrell. He knelt on grass beside Jon, gazing at city. "My king loves pageantry," Loras said, "but tomorrow will not be tourney." He fingered a rose brooch on cloak. "Tell me, North King, what do you fight for?" Jon's answer came without thought. "For my family, for people who freeze and starve while lords spill blood, for those who cannot wield swords yet suffer war." Loras smiled softly. "Then may the mother guide your blade." At midnight, a raven fluttered to Jon's tent. The parchment bore Bolton's seal. Robb encountered Ironborn uprisings on Stony Shore. Theon betrayed, seizing Deepwood Motte. Bolton riding west to quell. Jon's stomach twisted, betrayal sprouting amidst war. But nothing to be done now. He drifted into restless sleep. In dreams he stood atop wall, wind howling. Night's watch fires winked below. Ahead, an army of shadows marched beyond Frostfangs. Blue eyes glacial. A horn echoed 3 blasts, then a 4th unnatural like world cracking. Light flared, dragonfire. Green like wildfire rushing southwards. He woke sweating. Dawn crept crimson along horizon. The day of battle arrived. Trumpets shrilled from Renly's lines at sunrise. Stannis' ships unfurled sails emblazoned with fiery hearts, cutting Blackwater's half-frozen surface toward city wharves. Jon's host advanced along snow-crusted King's Road, mantlets rolling, archers knocking arrows with wool-wrapped fingers. On the battlements, Lannister men readied scorpions. Cersei watched from Maegor's holdfast, crown of spun gold and emerald pinned to braided hair. Qyburn stood behind, murmuring. Below in the city, wildfire jars were stacked in alleys, fuse ropes ready. Cersei's last gambit should walls fall. Outside, siege towers slid forward amid snow glare. Tyrell trumpeters blasted horns. The ground shook with cavalry massing for feigned charge. Northmen bellowed wolf howls. The sky filled with arrows, blackening pale light. Jon rode near the lead tower, Longclaw raised. Ghost bounded beside, snarling. Walls loomed, crenels lined with crimson shields. Suddenly, explosions. Ear-splitting roar as Stannis' ship hit chained wildfire trap. Green flame erupted, devouring hull, spraying sizzling droplets onto river ice. Men screamed, water steamed. Stannis on deck of flagship Signet cursed, ordering water barrels dumped. Yet Stannis' rear vessels skirted flames, catapults launching stones that smashed King. Escape parapets. Lannister scorpions returned fire, corals punching into sails. On land, Renly's men drove forward rams. Jon's tower reached wall. Drawbridge slammed onto parapet. Northern spearmen surged across. Jon led wave of shields, parrying halberd thrust, countering with backslash that severed haft and arm. Ghost leapt upon guard, dragging him down. Battle became blur. Clang of steel, spray of snow and blood, screams echoing along stone. Jon fought his way along battlements toward inner gatehouse. He glimpsed Brienne in blue cloak cutting through gold cloaks with methodical ferocity, Loras in green plate darting like striking viper. Stannis' men breached from riverside, meeting Renly's inside yard. Awkward allies but effective. When horns sounded again, 3 blasts, Renly's signal, Jon pressed deeper. He descended stair into courtyard where gold cloaks formed shield wall around gate to keep. Arrows rained from above. Wildfire pot exploded on far roof, setting barrels ablaze, green flame crawling terrifying across snow. Panic threatened. Jon rallied Bear Island women to flank shield wall. Meej hurled an axe into Sergeant's helm. Formation faltered. Jon drove Longclaw in, slicing through mail, feeling bone jar. Ghost barreled beside, red eyes ablaze. Gate breached. Northerners flooded inner yard. Jon dashed corridors he'd studied from stolen plans. Left, down slender stair, toward tower where Sansa was kept. 2 Lannister guards blocked passage. Jon's blade flashed, parried, riposted. One fell, other fled. He burst into room at corridor's end. Sansa stood behind overturned table, hands bound, eyes wide. An old septa lay unconscious on floor. Jon sheathed sword, cut her bonds. She collapsed against him, sobbing. "Jon, thought you were dead." "Not today," he whispered. "We go." They raced back. Smoke-choked hallway, wildfire creeping. Ghost led, guiding path through side stair. Outside in courtyard, fighting abated. Gold cloaks surrendering, Renly's and Stannis' banners flying side by side above gatehouse. Jon escorted Sansa across yard where wounded moaned and snow melted under hot blood. Renly rode up, helm removed, sweat freezing in hair. Queens fled to Holdfast with Qyburn. The keep stands but wildfire caches found. Stannis' men secure. Jon nodded, relief thrumming. He helped Sansa onto horse, Ghost trotting guard. "Take her to Maester at camp," Jon told Davos, who arrived breathless. "Keep her safe." Davos saluted. "On my honor." Thunderous boom echoed. Explosion from Holdfast. Smoke column soared. Panic resumed. Jon spun. From shattered window, he saw shape of green dragonfire coiling skyward. Cersei had lit some of jars prematurely. She would raise city rather than surrender. Renly cursed. "We must take Holdfast now, or she'll burn us all." Jon agreed. They rallied combined forces, stormed across courtyard, up red ramparts to inner palace. Wildfire shadows danced along walls inside, eerie green luminescence. Qyburn's dark acolytes hurled jars from windows. Men burned, screaming. Stannis burst through garden gate with handful of knights, sword blazing crimson in light. Beside him strode the Red Woman, untouched by flame, eyes shining. She chanted words foreign and potent. Flames licked aside from their path as if bowing. Cersei appeared on balcony, face streaked with soot, hair wild. In one hand she clasped Joffrey's wrist, in other, a torch. "Step closer and we all die," she shrieked. Jon halted below, Renly and Stannis flanking. Snowflakes hissed into melting puddles of wildfire. "Release my daughter," he said calmly. Cersei's laugh cracked. "Your daughter? My hostage, my shield. And you, Wolf King, brought doom." She raised torch over stack of jars. Joffrey whined, "Mother, please." A hiss, arrow flew, embedding in torch haft. Torch fell, clattering safe. All eyes turned. On rooftop crouched Arya, bow in hand, expression resolute. She knocked another arrow. Chaos erupted. Brienne charged stairs. Loras followed. Gold cloak still loyal to Queen attempted to block. Ghost leapt, fangs tearing. Cersei dragged Joffrey through door. Qyburn slammed iron gate behind. Jon and Renly gave chase, ascending spiral stairs choked with smoke. At top corridor, they found Queen cornered at dead-end balcony. Snow swirled around her. Behind, black dropped to courtyard. She clutched Joffrey. For a moment, madness warred with terror in her green eyes. Jon advanced slowly. It's done, Cersei. City stands. House Lannister not destroyed. Surrender, and your son lives. Her gaze darted. Son. She clutched Joffrey's jaw. This is no son to me, weak, sniveling. She shoved him forward. Renly caught boy. Cersei stepped onto balustrade. For heartbeat, Jon saw sorrow break through mask. Loss of children, father's absence, realm scorn. Then she leapt. Time slowed. Her gown billowed, wildfire sparks trailing like emerald comets. Body hit snow-crusted courtyard with dull crunch. Silence followed, broken only by distant battle cries. In aftermath, fires quelled, wounded tended. Stannis claimed throne room, but Renly's rose banners coiled within halls. Tyrell forces held gates. Negotiations loomed. Jon cared only for family. Sansa, alive though shaken. Arya, bruised but gleeful at shot. Ned, arriving by ship from Storm's End that evening, gray but unbroken. Father and son embraced in ruin of throne room, fragments of iron blades scattered. Snow drifted through sundered roof where dragon skulls once hung. Ned whispered, Lyanna would be proud. Jon shook head. War not won. Tywin still strong. Ironborn raid north. Bolton stirs. And beyond wall something worse wakes. Ned's gaze darkened. Then Stark and Targaryen blood must unite more than kingdom. We'll face winter as one. Across hall, Stannis conferred with Renly, Red Woman eyeing Jon with interest and unease. Above, melted swords of Iron Throne cast twisted shadows, symbol of power yet bane of peace. Ghost padded to Jon's side, muzzle flecked green ash. He stared into Wolf's red eyes and saw reflection. A king bearing weight of two worlds, ice and fire. Dawn's pale light seeped through cracked walls, illuminating carnage and hope alike. Bells tolled from Great September, dirges for dead, prayer for living. Jon turned to his father. A long night comes, but first we must salvage day. Help me forge realm not from fear, but from truth. Ned's answering smile was weary yet resolute. He clasped Jon's shoulder. We begin now. And so, amidst charred stone and drifting snow, amid banners of stag, rose, wolf, and dragon, the first fragile threads of uneasy peace were woven. Not by decree of Iron Throne, but by hands of men and women who had bled for something greater than crowns. Above, ravens circled, heralding winter's reign. Even as distant in east, dragons stirred within Daenerys' dreams, called by blood awakened across sea. The story of realms was far from over. Its next stanza waited in cold and fire, in shadows moving beyond the wall, in hearts of children who had seen enough of death to yearn for dawn. But for one heartbeat, as snowflakes settled upon the blackened stones of King's Landing and melted in slow crystals of steam, the world paused, balanced on edge of sword yet sheathed, and listened to the hushed, uncertain promise of a new age forging itself in winter's first pale light.